everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Adoption. I'm Heather.
And I'm Kim, and today we're kicking off a special December series on hope in adoption. December is a month when a lot of people think about hope, but in adoption, hope shows up in more ways and in more people than most people ever realize. It's not just something waiting families feel, it's not just something birth mothers feel. It's something that threads through the entire process, even in the complicated moments.
So, today we're going to start with kind of a big picture conversation. What does hope look like for everyone involved in adoption?
This episode sets the stage for the whole series. Next week, we'll talk directly to waiting families, and then the final week, we'll talk about hope after placement. But first, let's look at the many faces of hope.
So, I think a good place to start, Kim, is really with birth parents or expectant parents or anyone considering adoption for a child, or maybe someone who's placed a child for adoption. When we talk to women considering adoption, the word hope probably isn't the first thing people assume they're feeling. I think we imagine fear, uncertainty, pressure, maybe even a little shame mixed in there. And those things can absolutely be there. But underneath all of that, those layers, those feelings, those confusion, there is almost always a kind of hope. It's the type of hope that maybe they're hoping their child will be safe if they choose adoption. Hope that someone will be able to love their baby or child as deeply as they already do. And hope that they'll have a future they can manage. Probably also hope they won't be judged, and the hope that they won't have to walk through this alone, that someone will share this with them.
I remember, Heather, the social worker at a hospital told us that when she called us, she felt a big burden lifted. We work at Lifetime Adoption Agency, and she called and she didn't know if anyone was going to answer the phone.
Mm-hmm.
But, we work 24/7, so of course we answered the phone and we were able to help on the spot. And she shared with us later that when the birth mom hung up the phone after talking with us, it was like the weight of the world was lifted from her,
Mm-hmm.
that a burden was lifted. And I think that's hope, knowing
Mm-hmm.
that in something that feels so big and so messy and so impossible,
Mm-hmm.
that someone is there to cross the bridge with you.
Right. Right.
And
And I think that hope you're talking about, the hope, we're thinking about when we're talking about these moms, it isn't loud. It's often very quiet. It may also have a type of relief built into it. It's that hope that somebody is there, hope that someone will listen, the hope that she's making a decision that feels right, whether it ends up being adoption or she ends up choosing parenting. But there's hope that's just woven throughout it. And truly that hope, I think, is one of the most powerful parts of the work we do and the stories that we're a part of.
and I think that when a woman is able to get the support that she needs, she finally has a reason to be hopeful.
Yes. Yes,
And
absolutely.
continuing on here to hope for waiting families. Waiting families often think hope means staying upbeat or patient or positive all the time. Keep your mental attitude high and positive. But that's not real life. Nobody can do that. Don't beat yourself up if you're having a down day or a down moment, because being up all the time means there's no mountain without a valley, right? So that's not what real hope is, but real hope is much steadier and much more active.
Right. Hope isn't pretending. It's not pretending everything is easy or everything is fine. Hope is showing up even when you're discouraged. It's believing that you're waiting to adopt for a reason, to help a child, to grow your family. Hope is trusting the process even when you feel like you can't see any movement. It's preparing your heart and your home. And I think probably most of all, hope is taking the next step. That is an um, active thing we can do when we feel that hope, we feel that belief, we take that next step. And I know we've seen that in families who are ready to quit, and then a birth mother chooses them the next week.
Hmm.
We've seen that when families rediscover hope, when there's just a small shift, maybe not a match, but a phone call or an update or just maybe feeling understood or seen in the waiting part of adoption.
Hmm. Remember, Heather, we had that family. They weren't the shiniest family by far, and they were in an industry that I think when birth moms saw their profile, she kind of wasn't so sure that, you know, she. Now, normally, birth moms do love when their baby can have a chance to grow up in the country and everything. But this
Hmm.
particular family was in an industry that was not so shiny, not so pretty, and it had to do with livestock. And, but they kept their hope alive. They kept taking those steps, like you're saying, Heather. They kept their home study current. They kept updating things. They did everything that we asked them to do. And a birth mom came along, and that was the baby that God had for them. But if at any moment they had stopped keeping their home study updated, stopped being in touch with us, got too far down in the dumps where they couldn't even answer a phone call, they would have missed that opportunity for that child God had for them.
Hmm. And really, hope carries waiting families through that uncertainty, through those down days, not because everything is perfect, but because they know that they're they're keeping that hope. It matters.
Hmm. And by the way, through the years, they've sent us an update or two, that family I was telling you about. And that little boy just looks like he was born to be there.
Let's talk a minute about birth fathers. One perspective people rarely talk about is birth fathers, but truth be told, they have their own version of hope when it comes to adoption,
And, sometimes birth fathers aren't the most vocal in the adoption
right?
conversation, but when we can connect with them, we find that they want their child to have a stable home.
Hmm.
They're hoping the adoptive family will include them, and they want to know they did the right thing, and they're hoping their relationship with the birth mother isn't defined only by conflict. And they may be hoping against a lifetime of having zero reason to hope.
Right, right. And I think it's good to understand that birth fathers often carry hope quietly because they're not always the ones others are listening to first. They are not, like you said, they are not particularly vocal. And many times they feel like their place in adoption is less than. They're not the one carrying the baby. Sometimes they feel left out or not asked. But in most cases, their hopes align with the birth mothers. They just want a good life for their child, a life they wish they could provide. Many times a life with two parents is primary. And it is if for waiting families, if you are so blessed to have an involved birth father when you were chosen, that can be such a gift to really have both a birth mother and a birth father who are supportive and hoping all good things for this child.
Hmm.
And I think that kind of takes us to a different type of hope, and that is hope for after the adoption takes place. And certainly the birth fathers and the birth mothers, they are both very active in that type of hope. But I love talking about hope after placement because it's a part that most people don't really see unless they've walked through adoption personally.
hmm for birth parents, hope after placement might look like receiving that first update, a reason to hope, a reason to know that everything is okay, knowing their child is safe,
Hmm.
and building trust over time.
Hmm. And for adoptive parents, hope after placement shifts too. It becomes, hope not just for the child's future, but that they are doing what they need to do to ensure the child has a secure identity. Hope for understanding as their child grows up. Hope for strong and healthy openness with the birth parents. And, for the child, like many children, hope just looks like stability. It looks like love from all sides of the story. Hope looks like knowing the truth about their beginnings and knowing that, so many people love them. The point is, hope doesn't end at the hospital or at the match or when the documents are signed. Hope keeps growing.
hmm And hope, I want to add in, Heather, hope is one of the most powerful things. We've seen it throughout history and we see it in our individual lives. We see it on a global level and we see it on that very granular, microscopic level in these moments where we choose to have hope. And I just want to remind you, a line came to my mind, our hope comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth.
Hmm.
So we zoom in and we zoom out and we realize the source of our hope. It's not empty hope. It is the hope that comes from the Lord. And people sometimes think this work is heavy, and yes, it can be, but we also see hope every single day. We are zoomed in every day when we pick up the phone or answer a text.
Hmm. And that's probably where we see it at the beginning is when we do answer the phone, when we do answer the texts. You know, the opportunity to give women hope is something that, I mean, to your point, Kim, yes, it's heavy, but it can be such an honor to really be the one who offers that lifeline when people need it. You know, to say, I hear you. I understand. I know this is tough, but there's hope. And it,
hmm
it doesn't have to be choosing adoption. It can just be getting the help and resources someone needs at the time. We see it, when we hear from someone after weeks of silence. Maybe we had a, a conversation with someone and then, it goes quiet. But then when she reaches back out, and says, thank you for giving me hope. Thank you for giving me the tools. Thank you for giving me just information. We see it when a family, a waiting family, stays steady, stays faithful, and God opens a door. We see it every day in open adoption. The way birth parents and adoptive parents work together to ensure that connection is positive and is patient and is present for the child.
hmm
And I think overall, hope isn't dramatic. Hope is steady. Hope is quiet. And it's everywhere in adoption. So, as we begin this December series on hope, we want you to hear this message. Hope in adoption is real, but it doesn't look the same for everyone, even for people working in adoption. And that's okay. Next week, we're going to talk directly to waiting families. Often, those are the people who are holding the most hope in adoption. We're going to talk about how to hold on to that hope during a waiting season, especially during the holidays.
And then we'll finish the series with hope after placement, how relationships, connection, and healing grow over time.
thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us here. If you have feedback, if you have suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. You can submit those on our website, letstalkadoption.com, and tune in wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Thanks so much, and keep the hope alive.